And you're watching Standpoint. We're joined now by the presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party, Adewole Adebayo. He was also at the Arewa House, where the Joint Arewa Committee, where he answered questions posed to him by participants at that event. Good to have you join us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
So I want to start with some of the things you talked about, some of the questions that were asked you, and then your response at that meeting. And I want to start with what you talked about, because one of the biggest issues in the country today is the issue of oil theft. You see how many, the revelation that we've gotten in recent times. But you said that the oil theft really has to do with the politics of oil. And I just want you to speak on that.
You see, what we call oil theft in Nigeria are euphemisms for irresponsible governance. So it's like what insurance companies face when owners who are insured make false claims. It's like a person who is hiding his car and making a claim that his car has been stolen. It's like someone who burnt his house and is making insurance claims. Oil theft is a failure of government. The key participants in the theft are government officials. The person responsible for making it not to happen is the government. So it's the problem that we have in governance generally. That is what is happening there. It's not a case of just a simple outsider crime. It's the government diverting the resources of the people. It's not only the APC government, so it's not a partisan thing. This oil theft has been on for a long time. Government after government. And they do it. Just as this present one is doing it at a larger scale because of their own poor organization. And I decided to make it a point in our campaign, not because I want to be just a crime buster, but to explain to our people that all this talk about budget failure, deficit finance, debt accumulation, and all the other poor infrastructure and all of that is arising from the fact that oil is being stolen by the government and the money diverted. And I just made that point clear, and I have made sufficient evidence clear. And at the beginning, the government was denying it. They thought it would go away. The media was ignoring it. But in the final analysis, it became clear that you can't deny reality. So what they are doing now is distracting to say, oh, we are discovering something new. Oh, we are trying to do something about it. They are not. As I speak to you, even as I yesterday, when I monitored it, they were still stealing the oil. So that's the point I was making. And that the discussion in Arewa House as to whether oil resources are to be managed by the community or whether people in northern Nigeria feel like their oil wealth that is on the ground is not developed, or the communities that are producing oil now are interacting with northern Nigeria from that point of view. I said, look, why are you distracting yourself? The amount of money that is spent on northern Nigeria from crude oil from Niger Delta is not up to 20% of what is stolen anyway. So why should we fight among ourselves, region to region, as to whether one region is benefiting from the other, when international thieves, in collaboration with our own government, are stealing the bulk of it to take to their own countries?
With our own government, that's a blanket statement. And I know people say that a lot, and they say, oh, look, the government has to be involved in this. And I guess that's coming from the concept of the insider, when it comes to crime and criminality and just generally crime. But people say, oh, there's always an insider. But this particular situation, just a minute, there is no, I hope that do you have evidence to back that when you say it's the government? And that's one.
I have evidence. I'm not a careless person. I'm a lawyer. So I'm a royal person. I'm well brought up. And I'm running for the office of the #1 citizen of Nigeria. Why will I make careless statements? The stealing of the crude is taking place within the government, NNPC, Navy, law enforcement, people in the State House. This crude is coming out of the wells where we have commissioned President Buhari and all of these people who are in government now to take charge of. It's coming out of the ground, is going to our wellhead, is being loaded into ships whose owners are registered on the Lloyd Register, whose ownership of the vessels is known by IMO. They are traveling our territorial water where our Navy can see them. So it's not an, excuse me, it's not an invisible thing that you can talk about. It's not something that you can say we cannot see. That's visible. Neighboring accosting them and shaking them down and making their own money out of it too. So it's something feasible. I'm talking of ships the size of 10 houses combined together. So the government knows that I know. And the tank farms where they are storing them country to country, they are there. The companies selling them are the same companies that are supposed to sell legitimate oil. So there's nothing, I'm not saying this thing just to be sensational. I did my time I took my time in doing the research. I found out, I tried to see whether the government could not see it. I said that they can see it. So there's nothing strange there. It's a shame.
Well, you say you have evidence, and so that's fine. I hope that that evidence can be presented to Nigerians just in the name of transparency. But I want to ask you, if you become the president of this country, how would you deal with this whole situation around the oil theft?
First and foremost, is to let as Minister of Petroleum, whoever I make Minister of Petroleum has to be somebody who has zero tolerance for it. When I was speaking on another media yesterday, I said, when Shehu Shagari, before he became president, when he was Minister of Finance under Kawan, he saw it, that they were stealing the crude, and he insisted that they must put meter on wellheads. He made an immediate policy on that. Until then, they were not even putting meter on the wellhead. They were using the ballast of the ship to know the quantity, estimate the quantity. So, today now, are you aware that under the previous government of PDP, under President Goodluck Jonathan, I knew and I discussed with them when the Norwegians offered to give a security system for our pipeline so that nobody could steal crude from there. So I'm not talking of things which I'm talking because I want to take political advantage. I'm talking of things which I have discussed with the government to say, this is happening, stop it. Even if you don't have money to stop it, there are countries that have protected their own oil assets and will give you the technology to protect your own, just to help in alleviating poverty in the country. And I link this discussion of oil theft to why people say we cannot meet our sustainable development goals because there's no money. And I'm saying, how can you say there's no money when you are bleeding billions of dollars all the time? That's the context in which I'm bringing it. And I have taken steps. I've spoken to the Dutch because they are also involved in it. You go to tank farms all over Holland, you will see stolen crude of Nigeria being stored in those places. I've spoken to the Dutch to say, how can you say you are honest people? Everybody knows the Dutch people to be civilized, honest people. But your people are involved in it. The Swiss are involved in it. So it's not something that I'm talking just because I don't know what I'm talking about. I am saying that as president of Nigeria, I would stop it within my government. I will get the Navy to arrest every vessel that comes into our territorial water without authorization, which is what the Navy should do ordinarily. I will take help from everywhere. There are satellite coverage I will offer the government. So it's not something that you can say it is esoteric or is new. What is embarrassing is the government saying, oh, we have just discovered a pipeline, which they know from time has always existed. The Nembe truck line, everybody knows it. This is nothing strange here. It's like government saying, I've discovered
Mr. Adebayo, because of time, I have limited time. I want to move to Sorry to butt in. I just want to quickly move to other issues. And I know that you've stated your point on this. And you mentioned sustainable development goals. And that is really the goals that have been put in place for just regarding the well-being of Nigeria, not just Nigerians, but of just people around the world. And it really has to do with people. It has people at the center. And we know that we're going to hold our population census next year, which means that whoever becomes president next year has this population data to work with. For you, what would your strategy would you put in place in terms of the population trajectory? If you know, and I know you know this, that, for example, in some cities, they were only planned to accommodate a certain number of people, and now those cities have grown bigger. We have more people and millions of people in those cities without necessary amenities. So what would you do with that data in terms of planning?
Okay, now, our demography is our destiny. Because of how we were, it's because of our anthropology and sociology, it is natural that as population grows globally, we are going to increase exponentially. So the population of people in Nigeria is not as much a problem as the population of thieves in government. Because the natural resources of the country, when well applied, you are not going to have 250 million Nigerians to frighten you. You are going to have, out of these 250 million Nigerians, you are going to have 25 million, 30 million medical personnel. You are going to have 20 million agriculturists. You are going to have 4 million well-trained law enforcement people. You are going to have 35 million teachers. You are going to have people who are useful to the world out of this population. So the population is not a problem. The problem is we're not in Malthusian era or scenario where our population is growing beyond our resources. We are in a season where we can make sure that every Nigerian is educated, every Nigerian has access to healthcare, every Nigerian is living well and can be productive. They can have skills, and these skills can be sold all over the world. There are places in the world that have higher population than us. India, for example, they are improving the quality of their population. China, for example, they are improving the quality of their population. So, and there are poor countries where there are not more than 10 million, 20 million that are extremely poor. So Haiti, for example, hasn't got a population problem. There are very few. But so it is not the absolute number that is the concern. The concern is that, are you making social investment and that on your population so that you can make them useful and gainful, so that every Nigerian citizen is a profit center, not a cost center to the country. And that is why we were able to produce doctors, engineers, professors in the decolonization process. Nigeria is one of the fastest countries to have indigenes occupying important parts of the economy because of free and quality education, because of good healthcare, because of so many other investments we made in ourselves. What I'm looking at from the point of view of population is how I can ensure that the resources of this country are not being stolen. The way they are stealing the crude, they are stealing the solid minerals right in front of our eyes.
But Mr. Adebayo, we know that the GDP of a country is not nearly as important as the GDP per capita of that country. And so when economists, development economists look at your GDP and it's all fine, but they also look at your GDP per capita, and that's how they know how much of your country is developing. And that's why population census is always very important for planning. And that's what I'm asking you exactly. You have talked about social development programs. What sort of development programs will you put in place with the data that will be available in the population census?
Okay, let me make it very, very clear. GDP per capita is not an excuse to be afraid of the general population growth or size of your citizenry. What I am saying is this. You start with giving people access to food, nutritional balance. that they have that one. Secondly, that they have education. They have access to healthcare. With that, your GDP will rise. A tailor who makes dresses is making a contribution to the country. Otherwise, you will have had to import that dress into the country. The person who works in textile mill, the person who works on the farm, the production of the country depends on the investment we make in the people. And there are 4 categories of investment I am going to make when we are in government. One, I'm going to ensure that all the, excuse me, all the goals set in our Constitution, Chapter 2, they are well taken care of. That is, people have access to education, healthcare, housing, and participation in the economy by way of entry jobs and career jobs. That we have resources to make that happen if we just stop the tips. Secondly, I'm going to ensure that our manpower is trained in a manner that they continue to earn foreign exchange for us. Because doctors abroad, I lived abroad many years as a doctor, and I know how much money, as a lawyer, and I know how much money I sent back to the country. Tremendous amount of money. And in my community where I come from, in Ondo Kingdom, millions of dollars come into our community weekly from doctors, lawyers, engineers, people all over the world. Philippines makes a lot of money from sailors they sent all over the world. So what I'm saying is that education, healthcare, infrastructure, these are all the things you put in your population, and it will make your GDP per capita to rise. There's nothing magical about it. You have to, what GDP per capita is saying is that what is every citizen in your country contributing to the economy? And people who are well-trained, people with good healthcare, people who have good housing, who have good roads to travel on, good access to internet, good access to skill training, they will contribute. And you consume them domestically, thereby displacing import. You will also export the quality to other countries by way of goods and services. But you must make that basic investment. And you cannot make that basic investment if you are borrowing money for basic running of the government. You are borrowing money to pay salaries. You are borrowing money to pay previous debt, while at the same time allowing domestic enemies of Nigeria to find their way into government and bring foreign enemies of Nigeria to come and steal away our resources. We are bleeding trillions every year.
Let me ask you, because you went, and I want to switch now to again your visit to the Arewa House. When you went there, because one of the conversation in this election is the fact that, look, apart from being for the southern candidates, apart from being popular in the south, you also have to be popular in the north. And for the northern candidates, apart from being popular in the north, you also have to be popular in the south. And so when you went for that joint committee event, what's your thoughts in terms of the popularity of your party when you compare that to that of the APC, the PDP, the Labour Party in the northern region?
What I learned from the joint committee was that our agenda as SDP is popular with the participants. That was very clear. And you can go and investigate your journalists. They rated us the best in terms of agenda. They rated us the best in terms of participation. Now, what you also know is that they understood that our understanding of Nigeria is for unity and it's more harmonious. And we struck an understanding with them that northern interests and northern candidates don't mean the same thing. Because you will not always have a northerner in government all the time. The federation cannot survive if every part of the country says they must be in power all the time. This power, one way or the other, organically or naturally, it will rotate around. And we're able to convince the northern intelligentsia and the northern elders that having an SDP government led by me does not in any way jeopardize northern interests. Rather, it will promote it faster. They know that we understand the northern issues better than any other candidate. We are more committed to resolving the problems that are particular and peculiar to the north. And we also have a general understanding of the problem of Nigeria. So they are okay, but they're not going to do your politics for you, because the people we met there are the elite of the North. The Talakawas of the North will still want us to make our case. And we are making our case to them village by village, polling unit by polling unit, local government, street by street. So we are doing that across northern states. So they gave us a piece of advice on how to make our message clearer. And it was a very useful interaction. And I learned a lot about the process of political thinking in the North, and the fact that the northern elite are not interested in any northern candidate. The northern elite are interested in the candidate that is going to solve the problem of Nigeria, majority of which coincide with the problems of the North.
Mm. And when you say that you were ranked in terms of agenda, you were ranked the best, was that told you personally, or was that ranking made public? Are other candidates aware of that?
Other candidates are aware of that, but it's not their job to promote what doesn't favor them, and it's understandable. But they were said to us openly, and these are not frivolous people. It was said to us openly, and they said to many people. So I'm grateful about that, but that's not the only calling card for us to say now we have been rated the best by Northern Elder, Northern Intelligentsia, therefore we're going to win the election. No, it's just that it's a test that the message we are sending is not a regional message, it's a national message. Secondly, that people who can think deeply and people who have experience about running government and people who are highly committed to the interest of the North, who cannot be accused of being ignorant of the issues in the North or being novices, have understood that if Northern Nigeria is looking for a president that will make the problems go away, the most rational and best idea is to support Adewole Adebayo of the SDP. That is just a fact I'm making. It's not made up by me.
So when you say that, northern interest doesn't necessarily mean northern candidate, what's your thought then on a statement recently made by credited rather to the candidates, presidential candidates of the PDP during his time at the Arawa House as well?
Well, it wasn't just credited to him, made it. I was the person who spoke after him, so I know that he made that statement. That's not the issue. The issue is that the candidate had to make that comment because that was the only thing he could offer. It wasn't that he didn't like me or he doesn't like any other certain person. And the little I know about Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, he doesn't appear to be someone who doesn't like Southerners or anything like that. But he was in a corner. He had nothing to offer because they were asking questions about Northern interest. The only thing he could do is to say, I'm from the North. Because if he was to articulate what he had for the North, he had nothing. He has been in power before. They know him very well. Nobody knows you more than your own people. So you can go and be a prophet in foreign land. But when it comes to your own people, they know you inside out. So he did what he could do. The best he could do was, well, I can't tell them how I love the North. The only thing I can say, I'm from the North. But the question that they were interested in is not who's from the North. They wanted to know who understands the problem of the North and who understands the problem of the country and who is committed and who has a clear view. So he did the best he could do for himself. He couldn't compete on the issue of, I have the best idea for the North. But he could compete by saying, I'm from the North, because truly he's from the North. But that was not the question of the day.
Mm. And I think it's your gubernatorial candidate in Delta State that said that it is time. I think I'm trying to just paraphrase. I do not want to say something that he did not say, but something about time before the South, and that the votes should go to a Southern candidate. Do you think that that message is being received well in the North, and that we should vote just because someone is from the South?
No, I was there when he made that statement. The statement that Kenneth Baggy, OON, made, he's been a friend of the North for many years. So nobody can accuse him of not being friendly with the North. Most 99% of his friends are from the North. He's well known in the North. He's well loved in the North. What he said was to remind them, the people who were there, of an agreement made at the formation upon return to civil rule 1999. He was part of those who were in the PDP at that time. And that he reminded them of the agreement that they had, that for the harmony and unity of the country, they should be oscillating the presidency between North and South. And it was reminding them that North is about to finish, and naturally, Northerners being people of honor would remember that despite any sentiment that anybody would portray, that he believed that the North would keep to that understanding. That's just his own contribution. 1999, when they were reading this agreement, I wasn't there, but he was there, and he was reminding them of that. But the case that we went to make as a campaign in the North was, we are all Northerners. When it comes to the issue facing the North, insecurity, it affects all of us. People not being able to farm, it affects all of us. Cattle rustling, it affects all of us. Illiteracy, poverty, it affects all of us. Bad roads, it affects all of us. So even though the problem is geographically located in the North, it's a national problem, because North is substantial in this country. Same thing you will say of the South. If there is a violence in the Niger Delta and we cannot produce oil, it's not a Niger Delta problem anymore, it's a national problem. If you have insecurity in Zamfara, it's a problem for the country. But there are specific challenges that the North has now because of maladministration over time, that they became very impressed that I knew these problems. So when somebody is talking to you about issues that you are agonizing about, and the person knows the history of it, knows the cause of it, knows the content of it, and has solutions for them, and is articulating the solution in front of you, you cannot but admit that this person has done their homework and they want to work for us. And it's now to urge people to put sentiment aside and work with that candidate. That's basically what we achieved.
And after this particular meeting, what would you say your chances are against the other candidates, respectfully, that people say, look, these are the major candidates, the APC, PDP, Labour Party. I know the NNPP candidate wasn't there, but what are your chances rather against these other candidates after this meeting? What do you think?
Our chances on the ground will continue to improve. These are leaders of their communities. They've seen many of their young ones following us. They've seen many of their political operatives following us. Many of them have retired from politics, but they are still leaders of the community. Now, that meeting allowed them to understand why the young people in the North, the politicians in the North, are following this prince from Ondo, whom people have not heard of for a long time. So they're wondering, why are they following him? Why are they with him? So that meeting provided an opportunity for the elders to say, oh, we understand now. Now, it doesn't mean that our chances in the media will increase, because even the media, even though they saw us there, decided to ignore the fact that we were there. But I have a feeling that some of these discussion about the big party, top party, is an attempt to rig public opinion, so that when it comes to the time of doing debate, they will shut out people who have critical solutions, and then take the same kind of people and put them, try to force them down the throat of the people. But what we know is that somebody was telling me today, and that's an archbishop who was talking to me, said, anointing is not enough. Hard work. You have to go and work. So we believe in that. We believe that whoever is going to be president of Nigeria this time will not become president because they have friends in Northern Elders Forum. They have friends in Afenifere. They have friends in Ohanese. They have friends in media. No, that person will be somebody whom the voter understand very well, whom the voters want to have trust in, whom the voters see that has the best solution. That person is going to win. And I want to be that person. That's why I spend a lot of my time pounding the street, going around. There are some states that have faced them more than 4 times. Not to go and do 1 million man march, but to actually go and encourage our workforce, our boots on the ground, to do the work that they need to do. I have a feeling that our chances are increasing, and when our organic numbers begin to show themselves, not in parading aimlessly across the street, but when they start to show themselves in the areas of canvassing, every person will know that SDP has people on the ground in all the polling units.
And we will definitely continue to follow your campaign. Campaigns have started. I'm not sure if you have started yours, but we will continue to follow your campaign and bring you on from time to time to clarify issues and speak on certain issues. Thank you so much for your time. The presidential candidate of Social Democratic Party, Adewole Adebayo.